Good afternoon, everyone. Oh, excuse me. Esteemed members of the Board of Trustees and Global Advisory Council, honored family and friends, treasured colleagues, alumni present and virtually present, students. Allow me to begin this afternoon as we closed this past Monday with gratitude. There is a treasure in this tent, a treasure that none of us alone can ever own, but that itself is woven from our shared presence, commitment, conviction, and celebration. I invite you to take a moment to give earnest thanks in whichever way you best give thanks for the confluence of fortune and force that has granted us this blessed gathering of all the love, the light, the strength, and the excitement of Africa. Thank you, Anne. Aspiring alumni, it gives me such pleasure to address you this final time. I will endeavor, in keeping with Mr. Joel Baraka's estimation of my stature, to keep my remarks short, but memorable. Speeches of this nature are a delicate balance between time and ego. I will endeavor to diminish one and preserve the other. I hope that this is something I will manage. Today, I want to talk to you about bananas. In the interest of integrity, let me begin by citing the two sources of my inspiration. The first was an article on this most delicious yellow subject in Wired magazine. The other, on this second to last day of Ramadan, is of course hunger. In advance, Eid Mubarak. But still, why bananas? I think bananas carry several important lessons in this community of leadership. Bananas, as you might expect, are one of the world's largest exports. In 2016 alone, banana exports amounted to more than $12 million in trade worldwide, $12 billion in trade worldwide. 17 million tons of bananas were sold for export. As an interesting aside, in the top 15 banana-producing countries around the world that are responsible for 90% of all banana productions, only one, Ivory Coast, is on the African continent. Go Lions. Surely, elephants rather. Surely this is an entrepreneurial opportunity. In any case, if we think of bananas collectively as an organism or a family, they are doing very well. They're all over the place. And this is strange because bananas do not like to reproduce. They don't like to copulate. Growing bananas in a traditional sense is rather difficult because they're shy. This has frustrated banana growers for the longest time until someone figured out that actually you can quite easily clone banana trees. Through a process called suckers, each new tree is born as an offshoot of the father tree. This method requires no copulation at all. Even more excitingly for the big banana farmers, this also produces identical bananas. Each and every banana is identical in size, shape, texture, taste, and color, perfectly, predictably profitable. You see, if bananas were mating naturally, each family of offspring would express different traits. Some bananas would be sweeter, some bananas would be less sweet. With this method, each banana you buy is just about identical to the previous banana by any meaningful measure. Strange to imagine, isn't it? It gets stranger still. It turns out that today, virtually all bananas grown for export are clones of a single banana tree. If you purchased or consumed a banana in the past 60 years, which is most of us, the banana you consumed was almost certainly a Cavendish banana. That is an identical clone of a tree that lives in, of all places, England. The Cavendish banana alone accounts for the vast majority of all bananas in all supermarkets, in all stores, at all fruit sellers, and in all the factories around the world. Another interesting aside, the Cavendish banana itself was brought to England from its first home that it shares with our sister institution, Mauritius. The long tendril of colonial extraction never fails to reemerge. So, while all bananas are doing well, the Cavendish banana, as a single organism, is crushing it. According to BBC reporting, a full fourth of all bananas consumed in India, which consumes a lot of bananas, are Cavendish bananas. Almost any banana grown for food, for produce, for sale, for throwing at people in China is a Cavendish banana. You could almost say at this point that the Cavendish banana has effectively colonized human beings, manipulated us into carrying it around the world, planting it, feeding it, growing it, nurturing it, and duplicating it. Total servitude. The first lesson here is about poor strategy. When humans find something that works, we rush to scale it. Think of concepts like capitalism or the nation state or even the sharing economy. There is a risk, as we'll see in this methodology. The Cavendish banana, ladies and gentlemen, is in trouble. 60 years ago, the Cavendish was a distant second to another banana, the Gros Michel or Fat Michael, a larger, more delicious, and pervasive clone. Then came something called Panama disease or Fusarium wilt. This fungal disease, which attacks the banana tree, in a few short years, attacked and wiped out almost every single Gros Michel farm on the planet. And since all bananas were clones, identical genetically, they were all identically susceptible to the virus. Utter devastation ensued. Entire economies were crippled. So what did farmers do? They went in search of a new banana, one that was resistant to this strain of the fungal disease. And they found the Cavendish. Sure, it didn't taste the same, but it was close enough. And it could grow in the very same soil that had just killed all of those glorious farms. So humans switched bananas, trade went on, and today the Cavendish is king. The second lesson here is that humans at scale are bad at addressing root causes. We repeat mistakes in a rush to protect or recoup the bottom line. But now, in 2016 or 2017 as it were, the wilt is back. A new strain of Panama disease has emerged, one that the Cavendish is not resistant to. The Cavendish is dying, and we don't yet have another strain to replace it. Once again, entire farms, communities, economies built on this single clone, on this monoculture, are being wiped out by a single threat. The same thing that makes the Cavendish monoculture strong is now its final undoing. But Hatim, what does all this have to do with me? I am sure you are by now hungrily wondering. Firstly, yes, you may call me Hatim now. But further, imagine that this tent is in fact a greenhouse. And you, my friends, in your leadership are bananas. An immaculate variety of bananas. You see, what we need, what Africa needs, is not one perfect breed of leaders, one monoculture that could be perfected here or anywhere, cloned and transplanted to the farms and greenhouses of social betterment, political progress, economic growth, and genuine equality. One perfect transformational banana. What we need, what Africa needs, is instead a vibrant community of strange, resilient, beautiful bananas, each of them with different strengths, susceptibilities, weaknesses, and immunities. Sweet bananas, sour bananas, tall bananas, short bananas, quiet leaders, loud ones, slow leaders, and fast ones. The challenges of Africa are myriad, and so must be their solutions. Nassim Nicholas Taleb, the most prolific modern philosopher, describes a useful concept that he calls antifragility. Strong systems, he explains, systems that survive need shocks. Consider the example of a porcelain bowl. It may survive 1 or 2 knocks, but ultimately a single blow will destroy it forever. Human bone, on the other hand, like Mr. Bradford's wrist, if anyone has seen it, each time it is broken, heals stronger than before. It is anti-fragile. Shocks, challenges, risks make the system stronger instead of weaker. The Cavendish banana is fragile. Your community of leadership must be anti-fragile. Like bananas, you must find your own fields. Like bananas, each field will have new threats, new fungi, new temptations. Like bananas, some of you will be immune, some of you will not. If we are honest, portraits of leadership are almost always two-faced. Muammar Gaddafi, in one breath, is recalled as a murderous maniac, while on the inhale is recalled as an important architect of prosperity. Gandhi is both peaceful liberator and racist misogynist. It would be simple hubris for us to imagine that any one of you alone could someday become or remain the perfect leader, the perfect banana. We are all, as Mr. Toolhill so aptly reminded us last week, broken leaders, broken bananas. However, if you receive your leadership as collective, understand and engage yourselves as a single but diverse organism, you have a chance to correct that brokenness, to share your immunities, so that when Ghali, as finance minister, is corrupted by some financial fungus and begins to say, 1 + 1 is no longer 3. In fact, it's closer to 1 this year. Next year, it might even be 0.5. All the while, his pockets jingling with grafted coins. When that happens, Sumanga must pick up the phone to call and say, hey, this is the public protector. You are letting us down, and I am your inoculation. When hope, or fidelity, or constitution, or whatever she comes to be known as, decides, actually, this housing upgrade isn't what I really want to do. What we really need is another highway for my gated community. I pray that Luto will send her a strongly worded letter that says, sister, cease, desist, come back to the party. When Brahma forgets the tinkering of the makey-make and forgets the tinkering of the makey-make and turns hungrily towards the takey-take. I dream that Tawanga will go to see him, point her finger in his face and say, hey, we have big problems to solve. It is our turn to serve. Let me cure you. Also, your collective immunity must not only be negative. I hope that when Malaika finally drops that liberating album, which I am sure will be fire, that you will all buy copies for yourself and for your friends. When Salma, Amina, and Marubini rise to run the actual African Union, I hope that Sku, David, and Kukania will simultaneously have learned to model an African manhood that is unafraid of strong women. Remember, gentlemen, as Mr. Morake reminded us just yesterday, we lead through our friends just as much as we lead through ourselves. What I am saying in all this is that it will be insufficient for you to live your leadership individually. Necessary, but not sufficient. You cannot and will not carry this continent on your backs. You must hold one another upright as well. Your bananas will get sick. You must save one another. That act of holding one another up, sharing our antidotes, sharing our immunities, that is what makes us a community. That is culture. In his reflections on the Biafran conflict, Chinua Achebe had this to say about culture. I am aware that there are people, many friends of mine, who feel that there are too many cultures around. In fact, I heard someone say that they think some of those cultures should be put down. There are just too many. But we did not make the world. So there is no reason we should be quarreling with the number of cultures there are. If any group decides on its own that its culture is not worth talking about, it can stop talking about it. But I don't think anybody can suggest to another person, please, drop your culture. Let's use mine. That's the height of arrogance and the boast of imperialism. I think cultures know how to fight their battles. Cultures know how to struggle. It is up to the owners of any particular culture to ensure that it survives. Or if they don't want it to survive, they should act accordingly, but I'm not going to recommend that. My position, therefore, is that we must hear all the stories. That would be the first thing. And by hearing all the stories, we will find points of contact and communication, and the world story, the great story, will have a chance to develop. What Mr. Achebe describes here, I think, is precisely the same problem of the fragile monoculture banana. A single story that cannot hold our shared truth of survival and success. A single banana that cannot prevail. Your work, your service, is to hear all the stories you write together and the stories you discover together, and to pull from that rich tapestry the threads that will write the next chapter for Africa in the great book of the universe. More importantly, perhaps, you must not believe yourselves anointed denizens of Ebony Towers. You and I, and all of us under this tent, are swaddled in deafening privilege. If I add up just the snacks consumed in the past 2 years, that surely surpasses many lifetimes what some African households will ever harvest. That cannot be right. The Cavendish is dying precisely because it is planted in soils the threats of which it does not understand. Local bananas are faring fine. Just as the bananas that will survive this plague and the one after that are those bananas with deep, natural, organic roots in their home countries, our best cultures can only be arrived at in earnest partnership with those who permit our luxury. We can only discover tomorrow's Africanness in honest partnership with every other African, not in separation from them. There is no community in the world better equipped to serve this mission. The work of discovering and multiplying all the beautiful bananas of our souls. So take now your final assignment. It is very importantly your work to discover what the cultures of African leadership can, should, and will be. You must become a new breed of banana farmers. There will not be any more African studies classes, no more faculty farmers to guide your cultivation. You've left the farm and must grow now your own tastes and colors. You must now go out into the great greenhouse of adversity. Take with you these tools. Take with you the perspicacious focus of Mr. Faith and the unparalleled jubilance of Dean Uzo. Take with you the towering commitment of Mr. Jake and the calm counsel of Mr. Tate. Take with you the poet's soul of Mr. Dash and the creative compassion of Miss Camden. Take with you the careful wisdom of Mr. Jampo and the deep, loyal love of Mama Kay. Take with you the frenetic passion of Miss Lisa and the majestic magic of Mr. Gavin. Take with you Mr. Joe. Just take him. Take the whole thing. And Miss Melissa, too. Most importantly, however, take with you this moment of communion, this community, this authorship of culture being born. These bonds that hold you together will hold your promise together and bind us all in service of this mission. I hope that you find fertile, welcoming soils. I hope that your community will incubate the many sensitive, excellent, beautiful cultures that this continent desperately needs. Finally, I hope that your children and your children's children will grow up in a world with many different, delicious bananas. Thank you.